My coworkers whispered I slept my way to the top. Then I shocked them by announcing I am the boss and own 30% of everything. If you're just tuning in, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And please show us some love with a like. And comment below to let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from all over the world. The coffee machine hummed its familiar tune as steam rose from expensive ceramic mugs scattered across the breakroom counter. Conversations died the moment Amelia Washington walked in, replaced by the uncomfortable shuffle of papers and the sudden fascination with phone screens. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and everyone could feel it. "Good morning," she said cheerfully, her voice cutting through the artificial silence like a blade through silk. The forced smiles that greeted her were as transparent as glass, each one hiding daggers behind pearly white teeth. Adam Johnson, the company's longest-serving account manager, cleared his throat and mumbled something about quarterly reports before hurrying out. His coffee remained untouched, steam still rising from the abandoned mug. 3 other colleagues followed suit, their footsteps echoing down the hallway like a retreat. She poured her coffee slowly, deliberately, letting the rich aroma fill her nostrils while her ears caught the whispers floating from the adjacent conference room. Words like undeserved promotion and obvious favoritism drifted through the air like poison. "Did you see how quickly she climbed the ladder?" came Isabel Harris's voice, sharp with resentment. 2 years ago she was filing papers, now she's supposedly running million-dollar accounts. The ceramic mug warmed her palms as she listened, her expression remaining perfectly neutral. 26 months of careful planning had led to this moment. Every late night, every strategic move, every calculated risk had been building toward something none of them could imagine. Her reflection stared back from the breakroom window, showing a woman who looked far younger than her 32 years. Soon, very soon, those whispers would turn to gasps of shock. The truth was coming, and it would shatter everything they thought they knew about power, success, and exactly who held the real control in this building. Amelia Washington had heard enough. She set her mug down with deliberate precision, the soft clink echoing in the sudden silence that followed her movement. Every eye in the break room locked onto her, and she could practically taste the mixture of guilt and defiance hanging in the air. "Isabel," she called out, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made people straighten their spines involuntarily. "Could I have a word?" Isabel Harris emerged from the conference room, her cheeks flushed pink with embarrassment but her chin raised in stubborn defiance. At 41, Isabel had been passed over for 3 promotions in the past 2 years, each rejection leaving her more bitter than the last. "I wasn't talking about you specifically," Isabel lied, her voice wavering slightly. Amelia smiled, the expression never reaching her eyes. "Of course not. But since we're all here, why don't we address the elephant in the room? I've been hearing interesting theories about my career trajectory." The remaining colleagues shifted uncomfortably. Henry Gilbert, a junior analyst with ambitions far exceeding his abilities, actually took a step backward. His Adam's apple bobbed nervously as he avoided eye contact. "Look, Amelia," Isabel continued, her voice gaining strength from desperation, "we all know how these things work. Young, attractive woman, rapid promotions, close relationships with upper management. It's not exactly rocket science." The accusation hung in the air like a guillotine blade, sharp and deadly. Amelia felt the familiar fire building in her chest, the same burning sensation she'd felt during countless board meetings where men twice her age had questioned her credentials. "Interesting theory," Amelia replied, her voice dangerously quiet. "Tell me, Isabel, what exactly do you think you know about my relationship with upper management?" The question carried weight that none of them understood yet, but they would soon enough. The break room had transformed into a battlefield, invisible lines drawn between allies and enemies. Amelia watched as her colleagues chose sides with their body language, some backing toward the door, others moving closer, drawn by the magnetic pull of workplace drama. Lisa Carson, the head of HR, chose that moment to walk in, her timing impeccable as always. At 55, Lisa had survived 3 corporate restructurings and possessed an almost supernatural ability to sense trouble before it exploded. "Is everything all right in here?" Lisa asked, though her sharp eyes had already catalogued the tension, the defensive postures, and the way Amelia stood at the center of it all like the eye of a hurricane. Isabel seized the opportunity like a drowning woman grabbing a life preserver. We were just discussing career advancement strategies, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Specifically, the various methods some people use to climb the corporate ladder. Lisa's expression didn't change, but Amelia caught the slight tightening around her eyes. In her years of experience, Lisa had seen every type of workplace conflict imaginable, but this felt different. More dangerous. I see, Lisa said carefully. Perhaps this conversation would be better suited for a more private setting? No, Amelia said firmly, surprising everyone including herself. I think it's time we had this conversation in the open. Isabel seems to have some very specific ideas about how I achieved my position. Henry finally found his voice, though it cracked slightly. We're not saying anything inappropriate, Amelia. We're just curious about the rapid changes in the company structure lately. Adam had returned, drawn by the commotion like a moth to flame. His presence seemed to embolden the others, creating a small crowd of accusers and spectators. Curious, Amelia repeated, tasting the word like it was bitter medicine. Well, your curiosity is about to be satisfied in ways you never imagined. The conference room had become an impromptu arena, with Lisa Carson reluctantly serving as referee to a conflict that was spiraling beyond typical workplace drama. Amelia sat at the head of the table, a position that wasn't lost on anyone present, while her accusers arranged themselves like a tribunal. Let's be clear about what's being alleged here, Lisa began, her voice carrying the weight of legal protocols and HR nightmares. Isabel, you're suggesting that Amelia's promotions were based on something other than merit? Isabel's confidence wavered under Lisa's professional scrutiny, but she pressed forward. I'm saying that in 20 years of working here, I've never seen anyone advance so quickly without connections. Connections, Amelia repeated, leaning forward slightly. The movement caused everyone to focus on her with laser intensity. You're absolutely right, Isabel. I do have connections. Very important ones. The admission sent a ripple of shocked murmurs around the room. David's mouth actually fell open, while Adam leaned back in his chair as if he'd been physically struck. However, Amelia continued, her voice growing stronger, those connections aren't what you think they are. She reached into her briefcase and withdrew a leather portfolio that everyone recognized but had never seen opened. It was the kind of portfolio that accompanied serious legal documents, the kind that changed lives and ended careers. 3 years ago, she began, her fingers tracing the edge of the portfolio, I made an investment. A significant investment in a small but promising company that was struggling to find its footing in a competitive market. The room had gone completely silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Even Lisa looked intrigued, though her professional mask remained firmly in place. That company, Amelia continued, is this company. The words hit the room like a physical force, causing several people to actually recoil. Isabel's face had gone pale, her earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. David's pen clattered to the table, the small sound unnaturally loud in the stunned silence. That's impossible, Adam whispered, his voice barely audible. The ownership structure is. We all know who owns this company. Amelia opened the portfolio with deliberate slowness, each movement calculated for maximum impact. Inside were documents that looked official enough to stop hearts. Letterheads from prestigious law firms, corporate seals, and signatures that carried the weight of legal authority. You know what you've been told about the ownership structure, Amelia corrected gently. But the reality is somewhat more complicated. Lisa leaned forward, her HR training kicking in as she tried to process this information. Amelia, are you saying you're a shareholder? I'm saying I own 30% of this company, Amelia replied, her voice steady as granite. I'm saying that every decision made in this building for the past 18 months has required my approval. I'm saying that when you whispered about me sleeping my way to the top, you were talking about someone who literally owns the ladder you're all trying to climb. The revelation hit different people in different ways. Isabel looked like she might be sick, the color draining from her face so rapidly that Lisa actually reached toward her in concern. David's career flashed before his eyes as he remembered every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time he'd treated Amelia like she was beneath him. Adam, however, was doing the math, his analytical mind trying to reconcile this information with everything he thought he knew about corporate structure and business ownership. The Henderson Group, he said suddenly, his voice filled with dawning horror. You're part of the Henderson Group. Amelia's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Very good, Adam. I wondered when someone would make that connection. The Henderson Group. Even saying the name seemed to suck the oxygen out of the room. It was the kind of investment firm that appeared in Forbes articles and Wall Street Journal headlines, the kind that could make or break entire industries with a single decision. My God, Lisa breathed, her professional composure finally cracking. 25 years in corporate America had taught her to recognize power when she saw it, but she'd never seen anything quite like this. You're Amelia Henderson. Actually, Amelia corrected with a smile that was equal parts amused and dangerous. I'm Amelia Washington Henderson. I kept my maiden name for obvious reasons. The family connection explained everything and nothing simultaneously. The Henderson Group was founded by Theodore Henderson, a man whose business acumen was legendary and whose family connections ran deeper than oil wells. If Amelia was family, then every assumption they'd made about her had been catastrophically wrong. Isabel finally found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. But why? Why work here like a regular employee? Amelia finished. Because I wanted to understand this company from the ground up. When my family's investment group was considering the acquisition, I convinced them to let me spend time here first. See how things really worked when the owners weren't watching. David's face had gone through several color changes, finally settling on a sickly green that matched his nausea. Every casual dismissal, every time he'd spoken over her in meetings, every instance where he'd treated her like she was lucky to be there, it all came flooding back with crystal clarity. The acquisition, Adam said slowly, pieces of a massive puzzle finally clicking into place. That's why there have been so many changes lately. New policies, restructuring, budget modifications. Exactly, Amelia confirmed. We've been implementing improvements based on my observations. The weight of their situation was beginning to dawn on them. They hadn't just been gossiping about a colleague. They'd been spreading rumors about one of their actual bosses. The silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Amelia could see the wheels turning in their minds as they recalculated every interaction, every conversation, every moment of casual disrespect they'd shown her over the past 2 years. I have to ask, Lisa said, her voice carefully controlled, how much of what we've said and done has been documented? Amelia's laugh was genuine, though it held little warmth. Lisa, you're thinking like an HR director. It's good. It means you understand the gravity of this situation. She reached into her briefcase again and withdrew a tablet, its screen already glowing with what appeared to be detailed reports. I've been conducting what you might call an extended performance review, not just of the company's operations but of its people. Isabel made a small choked sound that might have been a sob or a laugh. The absurdity of their situation was beginning to hit her. She'd been essentially gossiping about her boss to her boss about her boss. Every interaction has been noted, Amelia continued, scrolling through what appeared to be extensive documentation. Every moment of collaboration, every instance of professional courtesy, every example of workplace excellence. And yes, every example of unprofessional behavior, harassment, and creating a hostile work environment. David's hands were shaking now, and he clasped them together to hide the trembling. Amelia, we didn't know. If we had known. You would have treated me differently, she interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. That's exactly the problem, David. Your behavior shouldn't depend on whether someone has power over your career. Respect shouldn't be conditional on hierarchy. Adam, ever the analyst, was trying to find an angle, some way to minimize the damage. So what happens now? What are your intentions? Amelia set the tablet down carefully, her movements deliberate and controlled. That depends entirely on what you do next. The power dynamic in the room had shifted so completely that it felt like gravity itself had been reversed. Where moments ago Amelia had been the subject of whispered accusations, she now commanded absolute attention, every word carrying the weight of career-defining consequences. Here's what's going to happen, she began, her voice taking on the authoritative tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. This company is undergoing a transformation. We're implementing new standards of professionalism, accountability, and respect. Some of you will adapt to these changes. Others will not. She stood and walked to the window, her silhouette framed against the city skyline like a general surveying a battlefield. Isabel, your behavior over the past 6 months has been documented extensively. Spreading rumors, undermining colleagues, creating a toxic work environment. In any normal circumstance, this would be grounds for immediate termination. Isabel's breath caught in her throat, and she gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles went white. 20 years with the company, 2 kids in college, a mortgage that kept her awake at night. Her entire life was balanced on the edge of Amelia's next words. However, Amelia continued, turning back to face the room, I believe in second chances. More importantly, I believe in the power of people to change when they understand the stakes. She returned to her seat, her movements graceful and controlled. Each of you will have the opportunity to prove that today was an aberration, not a pattern. That you can be the kind of employee this company needs as we move forward. Henry leaned forward desperately. What do you need from us? How can we fix this? Excellence, Amelia replied simply. I need you to be excellent. Not because you're afraid of losing your jobs, though you should be. Not because you've discovered I have power over your careers, though I do. I need you to be excellent because that's what this company deserves. Lisa cleared her throat, her HR instincts kicking in despite the surreal nature of the situation. Amelia, I need to ask about proper protocols here. If you're an owner, there are disclosure requirements, employment law considerations, all of which have been properly handled through our legal team, Amelia interrupted smoothly. My employment here has been completely legitimate and above board. The only people who weren't aware of my ownership stake were the employees themselves. She pulled out another document, this one bearing the official seal of the state's labor department. I've been operating under what's known as an undercover management provision. It's perfectly legal when conducted with proper oversight and documentation. Adam was still processing the implications. So every meeting, every decision we thought was coming from upper management. Many of them were my recommendations, Amelia confirmed. The new healthcare package you all love so much? My idea. The flexible work-from-home policy? The expanded parental leave that Henry used when his daughter was born? That was me fighting the old board members who thought it was too generous. David's face went through another color change as he realized that the woman he'd been dismissing had been advocating for benefits that directly improved his life. But here's what I really learned during my time here, Amelia continued, her voice taking on a harder edge. This company has an excellence problem, not a talent problem. You're all capable of brilliant work. But somewhere along the way you've gotten comfortable with mediocrity. Comfortable with office politics and gossip instead of innovation and collaboration. She stood again, pacing slowly around the table. So here's your test. In 30 days I want to see transformation. Not just in your work but in how you treat each other. How you communicate. How you solve problems. Isabel finally found her voice again. And if we fail? Amelia's smile was razor sharp. Then you'll discover just how much control a 30% owner has over staffing decisions. The weight of realization was settling over the room like a heavy blanket, but Amelia wasn't finished. She returned to her briefcase and withdrew a final folder, this one thicker than the others and marked with the unmistakable red seal of confidential documents. There's something else you all need to understand, she said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. My family's investment in this company wasn't random. We don't just throw money at businesses hoping for the best. She opened the folder, revealing what appeared to be detailed financial projections and market analyses. This company is positioned to become a major player in our industry. The contracts we're negotiating, the partnerships being formed, the technological innovations being developed. We're looking at potential growth that could triple our current value within 5 years. Adam leaned forward, his analytical mind immediately engaging with the financial data. These projections, they're incredibly optimistic. They're also incredibly realistic, Amelia replied. But only if we have the right team in place. Only if everyone in this company is committed to excellence instead of office politics. She turned to face Isabel directly. Which brings us to a crossroads, Isabel. Your performance over the past year has been declining. Your attitude has been toxic. Your behavior toward colleagues, particularly newer employees, has been unprofessional and, frankly, borderline harassment. Isabel's face crumpled slightly. I was frustrated. I felt passed over, ignored. You were passed over, Amelia interrupted, because you stopped growing. You became comfortable with complaining instead of improving. You chose resentment over excellence. The words hit like physical blows, but there was something in Amelia's tone that suggested this wasn't just a termination speech. But, she continued, you have institutional knowledge that's valuable. You understand our client relationships better than almost anyone. You have skills that, properly directed, could be instrumental in our growth. A glimmer of hope flickered in Isabel's eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice to make. The conference room had become a crucible, and each person present was being tested in ways they'd never imagined. Amelia moved to the whiteboard at the front of the room and began writing names, creating 2 columns that would define the immediate future of everyone present. Excellence or exit, she wrote at the top, the marker squeaking slightly against the smooth surface. These are your options. Not just today but every day going forward. She turned back to face the group, her expression serious but not without compassion. Isabel, you've been with this company for 20 years. You've seen it through good times and bad. You know our clients, our processes, our history. That knowledge is invaluable. Isabel nodded hesitantly, afraid to hope but unable to suppress it entirely. But knowledge without growth is just nostalgia, Amelia continued. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild your career here, but it means letting go of the person you've become and rediscovering the person you could be. She moved to Henry next. David, you have incredible analytical skills, but you've been coasting on potential instead of delivering results. You have 2 months to show me that you can be the asset I know you're capable of being. Henry nodded eagerly, relief and determination warring on his face. Adam, she said, turning to the senior account manager, you're the most experienced person in this room when it comes to client relationships. But you've been letting politics and gossip distract you from what you do best. I need you to be a leader, not a participant in the rumor mill. Adam straightened in his chair, understanding the weight of what was being offered, and what was being asked in return. And Lisa, Amelia said finally, I need an HR director who can help build the culture we need, not just manage the problems we have. Lisa nodded slowly. What specifically do you need from us? Amelia smiled, and for the first time that day it reached her eyes. I need you to help me build something extraordinary. 3 weeks later, the office felt like a completely different place. The change wasn't just in the air. It was tangible, measurable, and frankly remarkable. Amelia walked through the halls early in the morning, observing the transformation that had taken place since that explosive day in the conference room. Isabel had thrown herself into her work with an intensity that surprised everyone, including herself. She'd started coming in early, staying late, and most importantly, had begun mentoring junior employees instead of competing with them. The bitter, resentful woman who had once whispered about sleeping her way to the top had discovered something she'd forgotten she possessed: professional pride. Henry had implemented a new project management system that increased team efficiency by 30%. More importantly, he'd begun contributing ideas instead of just criticism, becoming the collaborative team member he'd always had the potential to be. Adam had become the leader Amelia knew he could be, using his experience to guide younger employees rather than gossip about management decisions. His client relationships had strengthened considerably once he stopped second-guessing every corporate decision. But it was Lisa who had perhaps shown the most dramatic transformation. She'd completely restructured the HR policies to focus on professional development and conflict resolution rather than just damage control. The new employee handbook she'd developed was already being praised by the corporate office as a model for other locations. Good morning, Amelia, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Isabel approaching, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Genuine respect mixed with something that might have been friendship. Good morning, Isabel, Amelia replied, accepting the offered coffee. How are the Morrison account presentations coming along? Better than I expected, Isabel admitted. Working with David's new analytics framework has really opened my eyes to some opportunities I'd been missing. They walked together toward the conference room where the morning team meeting would begin. Another innovation that had transformed the office dynamic from competitive to collaborative. 6 months after the confrontation that changed everything, Amelia stood before the entire company in the main conference hall. The quarterly all-hands meeting had always been routine corporate theater, but today would be different. Today she would finally step fully into the role she'd been playing behind the scenes for over 2 years. Many of you have been wondering about the changes we've implemented over the past several months, she began, her voice carrying easily to the back of the room. The new policies, the restructuring, the shift in company culture. Today, I want to explain where these changes came from and where we're going next. She could see her former accusers in the crowd, Isabel, David, Adam, and Lisa, all of whom had become some of her strongest allies. They knew what was coming, but their faces still showed anticipation mixed with something that looked like pride. When the Henderson Group invested in this company 3 years ago, it wasn't just a financial decision. It was a belief in the potential we saw here. Potential in our market position, potential in our capabilities, and most importantly, potential in our people. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. I'm Amelia Washington Henderson and I own 30% of this company. But more than that, I've spent the last 2 years working alongside you, learning from you, and discovering what makes this place special. The gasps and murmurs that rippled through the crowd were exactly what she'd expected, but she pressed on. What I found was a group of incredibly talented individuals who had lost sight of what they could accomplish together. I found brilliant minds held back by petty politics and office gossip. I found people capable of excellence who had settled for mediocrity. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I also found people willing to change, willing to grow, and willing to commit to something bigger than themselves. Over the past 6 months, you've proven that this company doesn't just have potential. It has a future that will surprise everyone, including ourselves. She smiled, looking out at faces that had transformed from suspicious and competitive to engaged and collaborative. The whispers about sleeping my way to the top have stopped, but not because people discovered who I really am. They stopped because we've all discovered who we really are when we choose excellence over gossip, collaboration over competition, and growth over comfort. The applause that followed wasn't just polite corporate clapping. It was genuine appreciation from people who had rediscovered their own potential. Welcome to your new company, Amelia concluded. Let's build something extraordinary together. Thanks for watching. Give us a like if you like the video and share with us in the comments what you think about this lovely tale. We always enjoy reading your comments.